Today, Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton stood united against anti-Semitism outside the Melbourne Holocaust Museum.
And wherever the forces of anti-Semitism are on the march, there is a need for moral courage and moral clarity. Right now, there is a need for unequivocal and unqualified condemnations of the anti-Semitism we are witnessing.
Wherever racism has raised its head, if you look for the leaders of those campaigning and speaking out against it, it is the Jewish community.
All right, joining me now, National Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie and Labor MP for Parramatta Andrew Charlton. Great to see you both.
Good to be with you.
Andrew, I mean, look, I have to be honest, as the Jewish community, we've been crying out for leadership from the Prime Minister on anti-Semitism. He finally got there today.
Well, it's very important that we be extremely clear about anti-Semitism. There have been disgusting and disgraceful acts of anti-Semitism that have occurred in Australia over the last few weeks, and they are appalling, and there is no place for that in Australia. One thing that I do think we should be calling out, though, is the strong leadership from many elements of both the Jewish and Muslim communities. For every act of anti-Semitism, for every violent act, which are reprehensible, that we've seen at protests, we have seen a lot of courageous leadership from both the Jewish community and the Muslim community leaders who've been calling out bad behaviour, who've been promoting peace and promoting community harmony. I think that is something that also needs to be acknowledged in this discussion.
Bridget McKenzie, these were strong and moving words today, a show of support at the relaunch of the Melbourne Holocaust Museum. How important is it during this time that we just actually remember what happened during the Holocaust and how, you know, it started with the sort of sentiments we're starting to see in our society, and that's what's so terrifying.
Absolutely, Sharri, and I think it was, you know, a great event this morning where leaders from across the political divide spoke out against anti-Semitism. And when the world, after the Second World War, said never again, we're never going to allow the treatment of the Jewish people to happen like this again. And yet in our own country, we have seen, as Andrew says, despicable acts. I don't see the equivalency, though. I think anti-Semitism and this, that it's only in this unique circumstance. The Jewish people have been subjected to horrific acts throughout history, and we need to be conscious of that. I'm buoyed by the Prime Minister's newfound commitment today, but again, it's taken him a long way to get there, and as usual with this government, is always too little, too late across a whole raft of portfolios, but on one as important as this one, they keep getting caught flat-footed, and I think it's really disappointing for our Jewish community. But congratulations on today for finding absolutely the right sentiments and words, and let's hope they back it up with actual action on the ground.
Well, breaking news this afternoon from the ABC that 860 temporary visas have been granted to Palestinians in Gaza. Now, these are not Australian citizens, Andrew. There are a lot of concerns, and Dante and the Shadow Immigration Minister came out this afternoon to say we need to know what process has happened here, what security checks are being done. We haven't heard from the Immigration Minister or the Home Affairs Minister. Don't they need to come out and tell Australians how these 860 were selected, and to reassure us that anti-Semitism and even Hamas affiliations aren't being imported, you know, into Australia?
Well, you know, it is entirely routine in situations like these, and particularly conflict situations, for the Australian government to provide support for Australian citizens returning to Australia, and also for relatives of Australian citizens to return to Australia. I think most Australians would accept that that is a good thing to do. It was done by this government and it was done by the previous government. Now, in every single one of those circumstances, the Australian government applies identity and security checks. There are no exceptions to that, and in the case of these Palestinians coming from Gaza, there have been no exceptions to that.